Welcome back to Business Intelligence. My name is Wei-Chung Wang. So happy to be here with you. I have my co-host, Rohan Bandekar, who's our project managers in the company, and he has served so many different clients, and I'm so excited to have him on board to share his expertise with the broader audience, and I look forward to also learning a lot from Rohan. So welcome, Rohan.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to do an episode of Business Intelligence, and I'm excited. It's the holiday season coming around, so we're looking at some nice deals, and I was actually wondering, like, you're an economist, right?
Yep.
I was wondering, what do you think about the holiday season frenzy and the discounts and the Black Friday sales, and like, just what's the state of the world right now, given that we just got out of a pandemic, right? And holiday season's coming around, and people were really sad that they couldn't make the most of last year's holiday. Like, what do you think is going to happen? What does the economical world look like right now?
So Rohan, you're actually not alone, right? So for those of you that have been following our previous episodes, learned that I've actually been approached by U.S. News and World Report, and they did an interview with me to talk about the upcoming holiday season. And by the time when this episode airs, you're going to see another report that I did an interview with for U.S. News and World Report.
Oh,
so they reach out to me, again, trying to ask for tips, because all the consumers out there, they are really looking forward to the holiday shopping season. And as I explained previously, about a couple months ago, some of the merchants started doing ad campaigns in mid-October. I mean, they're selling Christmas-related stuff in mid-October because they're really trying to capitalize what we call the holiday shopping season frenzy, right?
Yeah.
And just like you said, I mean, last holiday season was a flop. People wanted to have some sort of normal holiday shopping experience this year. But here's the problem that we have, with the supply chain challenges, they're ongoing, right? We're still not seeing the end of it. As a matter of fact, the two ports on our West Coast, one in San Pedro, the other in Long Beach, they're still very much jammed. And the inflation right now is off the chart. Everything is now more expensive, from gas to grocery to the necessities. And I don't have to tell you, because I'm pretty sure that you're experiencing it. And that's just on the consumption side, right? So on the production side, a lot of businesses in various sectors, they have difficult time filling positions. So personnel shortage, not necessarily people, we don't have enough people to work, but we do not have enough people that want to work is the problem, right? So I don't have high hopes, although I will say that from the personal perspective, this is usually the time that I start rummaging for deals, and you still see deals flying around. But what I would advise you to see, as I told the reporter at U.S. News and World Report, you got to be really careful, because there are, again, a lot of merchants that are trying to take advantage of the holiday season. They might give you ads or discounts to clear out the less popular items.
Right. Okay.
And whether or not there are real discounts, that's a question.
That's a whole different podcast.
That's a whole different podcast, right? Because the marketing, there's a slew of strategies that come with it. So you ask a fantastic question, but what I worry about is business owners and consumers, they're not really they're not understanding the picture fully, right? So they are being driven by this, festivities, and they want to have a normal holiday season. But what I worry about is what happens after the holiday season, after the shopping activities die down.
Right. Okay.
Right. Well, is that something that you are seeing?
I don't know, honestly. Like I've been seeing deals, and I think culturally people have been conditioned to want deals during this time of the year. Like it's ingrained in the culture, and I've seen people like going into supermarkets on Black Friday, and like this time of the year, it's like people really want their discounts, and like supermarkets and merchants and businesses are like almost forced to give discounts at this period of time.
Right.
But I was wondering, how does like we've all experienced like supply chain delays, right? Like Apple had to delay their new MacBook releases because they were not getting chips on time, right? Like so many automobile manufacturers are having delays. How is that supply chain delay and the two ports you mentioned that have been backed up, like how is that affecting the way we are approaching the holiday season?
So I think a lot of merchants, they're probably feeling this at the forefront. So they couldn't get the products that they want. So they're selling other products instead.
Oh.
Right? So the discounts that you're seeing are, are on the products that they have available at their disposal. Right? So they still have some inventory pressure, and to a point that they could manipulate the discount and to get the less popular items out the door. Again, leveraging the customer's fear of not wanting to be left out. So there is a fear of missing out that they're leveraging.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
like you said, exactly like you said, I have to have gifts ready for
Right.
my family and the loved ones. So there's no way around it. Now that we have a normal holiday season, everybody's gathering, I have to have something available. But when I couldn't get the things that I want the most, what do I do? Right. So there is kind of like a last resort kind of thing, like a fear of missing out kind of thing that are operating behind the scene. But what I worry about again is looking ahead, like after the shopping frenzy dies down, what do we do? Like if you're business owners, what do you do with the leftover inventory? And if you're customers, what do you do? How do you deal with the inflation, right? Right now, you're being driven by this festivity, knowing that the things are expensive, but you don't have a choice. You still want to buy things, right? But after the holiday is done, you don't necessarily have to buy things. And then you could rationally and realistically look at the prices of the things that you actually need on a daily basis, and that'll probably dampen your demand.
Right.
And that's going to have a more profound impact on the economy.
Right. Yes. And that is a great point, because that means businesses have to be prepared to think about what happens when like the holidays are over and people are not spending as much. How do you think businesses and small business, like especially small businesses, like any merchants, like people that have depended upon quarter four sales, right? Like how do you think they should proceed into next year as we finish the holiday season?
And that's actually, you are right on point, right? Because what you just described hit the nail on the head to explain why I wanted to do a podcast on this very topic.
Right.
Because I don't think that there is a widely shared sense of understanding what we need to do collectively to prepare for the negative impact or the consequences of the supply chain challenges. Because what I can see here as an economist, the supply chain challenges are not going away that easily, right? You see a lot of Southeastern Asian countries, some of them are starting to resume operations. But that's not going to be in time for the holiday shopping, of course. I mean, the production takes time and the logistics takes time, not to mention the supply chain challenges are ongoing. And some people ask me, what caused the supply chain challenge? And is it because that we don't have enough people working at the ports? Well, not necessarily. I'll share one very interesting story with you. So Ryan Peterson is actually a CEO of Flexport. Flexport is a company that buys and sells cargo space. Right? And with the backed up, obviously it hurts the company's bottom line. So Ryan Peterson the other day tweeted out his observations. So to a point that it was so serious, Ryan actually rented a boat to tour around the Los Angeles port and San Pedro and try to figure out what happens. What is actually the bottleneck? Right? It turns out what he saw at the port was not surprising. Right? So there is more than 70 or 80 container ships that are being backed up. They couldn't dock and unload, right? And to put things in perspective, each container ship has anywhere between 7,000 to 8,000 containers. And just put things in perspective. Think about how many trucks that you need to unload all these containers, right? But what Ryan found, surprisingly, was that the cranes at the port were not working. Nobody was working the cranes. To operate the cranes.
Why is that?
Because the containers, it turns out that when he dug down deep, he realized that the problem is actually with not having enough space to put the empty containers. So you have all these trucks with empty containers, and they want to detach the containers
Right.
so that they could haul the containers with cargo out, right? But there's no place to put the empty containers. Turns out the federal government here in the United States is not the one that controls the ports. The ports, the two ports in the West Coast, in California in particular,
Right.
San Pedro, Los Angeles, and Long Beach, are the two cities that control the ports.
Oh.
Right, federal government has no say in this, right? So Long Beach City, the city of Long Beach and San Pedro, they actually have local ordinance to dictate how things are done, how the business is being operated.
Okay.
Right? So, for example, take city of Long Beach as an example. They have an ordinance that says that containers cannot be stacked up more than 2 stories.
Really?
Right? Not for safety reasons, but for the reasons of not letting the city look bad.
Oh, wow.
Right? So you run out of space.
Yeah.
Like, how do you accommodate all these empty containers? And then that is a clear bottleneck.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
And like things small as that affects the entire country. Think about it. I mean,
Exactly.
again, to put things in perspective, those 2 ports, Los Angeles and Long Beach, handles actually 40% of the U.S. imports.
Wow.
All right? And I think, from this, that's going to be taken care of, because now people are having this laser focus trying to sort out what the issue really is.
Right.
And I think that's going to be taken care of. But whether or not that's going to be in time to deal with the holiday, to handle the holiday shopping, I don't think so. All right. Now, we actually have a bigger problem here. The macroeconomic dynamics have been changed so significantly after the pandemic that caused the disruption in supply chain, that also caused the disruption in the economy, in that you look at a lot of restaurants and some sectors, they don't have enough people to hire,
Oh.
right?
Okay.
And just to give you statistics, the labor participation rate, according to Bureau of Labor Statistics, is right now the lowest ever since 1977. All right.
Wow.
So
Okay.
labor participation rate is defined by people who are eligible to work,
Right.
but choose not to work.
Okay.
All right. Now you could say, conventional wisdom says, as long as you change the parameters of the work, that includes the wage offers, you could get people enough motivation and incentive to come back to the work environment.
Right.
Well, take a look. You look at all these fast food restaurants, for example. They keep increasing the wage offers from the minimum wage all the way to $15. Some are even offering $20 or $22 per hour.
Right.
They're still not having enough personnel. So
Okay.
what gives? So you now see there's another school of thoughts that says, after the pandemic year, people are having different ideas about their life.
Right.
Right? People want different things, and they probably do not want to work in the restaurants or hospitality industry or even healthcare industry,
Yeah.
because they want to find another meaning to life. Now, the problem is, I don't think that there are these people that are refusing to come back to their professions is simply because that they have enough welfare payments or stimulus checks to support them with the new lifestyle. They simply just want to find a new thing, something else to do.
I see.
With the inflation going on, with the challenge in personnel and the challenge in supply chain, as a business owner, are you ready? Because after the holiday season dies down, people don't want to go out to shop, and people will be really deterred
Right.
by the high price. Because that's when the reality hits, right? Because after the holiday, people are then going to be super sensitive.
Much more inflexible. Yeah.
Exactly. So what do you do? Now, I've heard some interesting stories about, fresh college graduates. As you know, Rohan, I teach in a liberal arts college. I've been seeing people getting job offers with annual salary that are much higher than before, right? Because again, businesses are getting ready, especially the bigger companies,
Right.
Because they want to really grab people
Yeah.
before they graduate, knowing that the personnel shortage is a real challenge. But as a business owner, can you compete, right? We always thought, from the business operation perspective, that if we want to expand, hire people. We need people to do that work,
Right.
right? Well, not necessarily. I mean, if you're operating a restaurant or if your business has a lot of like a significant in-person element, that's probably right. I mean, you need
Right.
enough waiters and waitresses
Yeah.
to support your business if you're running a restaurant. But I would argue that a lot of businesses, especially the clients that we're serving, they don't have that.
Exactly. Yeah.
They don't have that. And right now, especially after 2 years, ever since the pandemic broke, people have been slowly adapting to the kind of like new ideas and new mode.
Right.
Are you being left behind? So, because a lot of business owners, again, if you're trapped in the traditional mindset of, I got to be able to find more people to
Right.
fulfill that function, well, there's got to be a better way. Do you have alternatives? So, for example, do you really need to have a full-time person dealing with your social media management or social media accounts? Or do you really need to have a full-blown business development team to qualify the leads and generate leads, qualify leads, and close deals? Are there tools available that allows you to automate the process
Right.
to save people? This is not to say that you could completely do away with personnel,
But you can definitely reduce costs.
but you could reduce costs.
Yes.
And I would argue, I'm not sure, Rohan, whether you would agree, that this is probably the time to think about it as you plan for the next calendar year.
For sure.
A lot of clients that we have been serving, including the ones that you're working on, Rohan, we are seeing that business owners are more flexible in looking at their infrastructural needs, not necessarily just personnel, because your operating expenses covers a lot of different items, and personnel is just one of them.
Right.
Right? And what are the alternatives? They are more willing and open to consult with people that understand how to use the tools, how to leverage the different solutions
Right.
to better the business operation and workflow. Just as an example, and we talked about or business development. Traditionally, you want to hire a sales team, right? That go on trade shows, that try to conduct outreach effort. I've been to a lot of trade shows. I've been invited to do keynote speeches at all those trade shows.
Right.
And people, for example, they do trade shows for a variety of reasons. One of the many reasons would be to network,
Right.
And also to make your company known, to expose your products. But how much can you convert, right? Like you spend, obviously you have to set up a stand, you
Right.
have to pay a fee to participate. You also need to hire the sales professionals,
Right.
Sometimes seasonal workers, to help you man the stand. How much can you convert? How many leads can you qualify? You collect all these business cards. Are they really useful? Or right now, in a post-pandemic moment, when people are more familiar and comfortable with doing business remotely and virtually,
Right.
do you still want to spend all this money, traveling
I see.
and covering the logistics expenses? There are better ways to do that virtually,
Right.
So there are networking tools. There are solutions, your CRM, as well as some tools that offer sales navigators functionality
Yes.
to qualify and reach out. And then you have a very beautiful dashboard. Again, that's an infrastructure investment. And if you're willing to invest, that's really a better way to deal with that.
Oh yeah. For
Customer
sure.
service team as well, right? So there are a lot of functionalities that you could consider expend. You could consider to expend without considering hiring full-timers
That's right.
to your team, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the pandemic was a great example of like how much of an impact an external factor can have. Like the fact that the pandemic had an impact on the culture of the way people want to work and that has to challenge business owners and small businesses to change the way they work is so crucial, and that's a very, very, very helpful insight. And I hope a lot of small businesses have like found this to be like a helpful thing, and they can plan accordingly, you know. And we have the tools necessary to kind of like help them plan in this new world we live in post pandemic, where the culture of people have changed, you know. And there's so many tools available, you know, like automation is going to be digital technology. Automation is going to be the future of small businesses and the way they survive in this world, I think. And I think we have the necessary tools to kind of combine them and help them out. What would you say?
So I completely agree with you. There's one more thing that I would like to say. I mean, the traditional way of doing business usually doesn't involve a lot of ways for you to really identify the effectiveness.
Right.
So we talked about trade shows. What you will be seeing after the trade show is how many business cards that you collect, how much money that you have spent on traveling and setting up the operation at the trade show, and you know. So at the year end or at the end of the event, you're going to be able to see the cost as well as the potential benefits, and that include, for example, like I said, how many business cards that you collect. But that's about it. Right? So our data analytics effort, especially for small to mid-sized businesses, basically stop there. You don't see how you could actively convert or transfer your effort into something more meaningful. And that is your bottom line, whether it's your bottom line or top line, right? What about if you could identify a way that constantly gives you leads, that constantly, lays out, for example, how successful you could be in converting those leads into sales, not just a one-time event, right? So for traditionally, like this is how we always do business. Like so we would, 20, 30, 40 years ago, we would say, oh, you know what? Let's spend time buying an ad in the printed media or buying an ad in a radio station. There's no way for you to convert, right? And so you're still hearing that, right? I mean, listening to the radio station, local radio station, you'll hear something like, oh, you know what? Mention the name of Wei-Chung Wang, we'll give you a special discount, right? That's the only way for you to capture, right? And people are still doing that. But in a digital world, there are multiple ways for you to come up with effective yet insightful statistics to guide your decision-making process. And that'll give you a very clear ROI to justify whether what you're doing is actually impactful to your leads. It doesn't matter. I mean, sometimes it's the leads. Sometimes it is the impression to the customers. Sometimes is your brand equity. Sometimes is how you develop new products. Right? Because you want to solicit customers' feedback, and there are ways for you to do that. Through the customer service channel, as well as the way that you interact and engage your customers.
Exactly.
But I'm worried that people are not ready for that because, again, we're still living under this positivity of the holiday season. But listen carefully. If you're still swimming in that festivity, you really need to think ahead. Because I, as an economist, am really worried about what happens post-holiday season. Again, when people stop buying and supply chain challenges continue, inflation is a real thing. And we don't seem to have a quick enough solution to do that. And when all these hot money are still being circulated in the economy, but you have the personnel shortage, are you ready for the negative impact on your business, or do you need to do something to plan ahead?
Exactly. And that's a great question to ask. And for the audience, for the listeners, that's a great question to ask us because we can help you with many of those services. So if there is any services that you would like to get from us, you can click on the link in the description below. And this was a great episode. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you very much for
Yes.
joining, and I expect that we will have more conversations.
Oh, for sure.
You know, obviously Joey is gonna join us
be
later,
back.
but yeah, he'll be back. But we're gonna taking turns sharing our latest insight with you, and I hope you enjoy the content this week. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Sure.